Welcome to the NHL Wraparound podcast featuring Neil Smith, President General Manager of the 1994 Stanley Cup champion New York Rangers, and longtime ESPN NHL veteran Vic Morren. Together, they share no-nonsense opinions on news and issues around the National Hockey League. Whether you're a casual or diehard fan, each episode of NHL Wraparound will leave you more informed. Now, here's your hosts, Neil and Vic.
This is the human side of the story, brought to you by the Game 7 group. And so often we like to look at players meeting the moment in Game 7, but let's give a big shout out to Paul Maurice, who wins his first Stanley Cup after 26 years behind the bench in Game 7, pulling his team together, because succeeding requires the best of teamwork. At the Game 7 group, transforming individuals into cohesive groups allows every team the potential to achieve extraordinary results. Game 7 Group offers various services such as team building events, plus coaching and speaking engagements aimed at improving team dynamics, productivity, and overall performance. We all want to succeed in the big moment. Check out the Game 7 Group website at game7group.com/NHL Wraparound to learn more. Right now, a special incentive offer awaits our podcast listeners. Take your team to the next step. The Game 7 Group will get you there.
Vic, Paul Maurice did a magnificent job with the Florida Panthers for 2 years in a row now, but achieving the ultimate in Game 7.
He certainly did. And just a little bit of background, because he had to stop playing when he was playing for the Windsor Spitfires in the OHL in juniors. He was actually originally a Philadelphia Flyers draft pick. Back in 1985, he was the 252nd and last pick. So if this was the NFL, he would have been Mr. Irrelevant. But after his eye injury, he got into coaching with Tom Webster in Windsor, and then joined the Detroit CompuWare team. They later became the Ambassadors and then the Junior Red Wings in the early 90s. Then got his first NHL job with the Hartford Whalers and then Carolina Hurricanes between 1995 and 2003. After a year in juniors with the Toronto Marlies, he joined the Maple Leafs from 2006 through 2008, and then went back to Carolina 2008 through 2011, and then a year in the Continental Hockey League with Metallurg Magnitogorsk. So say that one three times quickly. And then from 2014 to 2021, went to the Winnipeg Jets and appeared maybe a little bit burnt out, but then got the call from Bill Zito, and the rest is history. And just, some of the great numbers for Maurice. As we mentioned, 26 seasons, fourth most wins in NHL history. And interestingly enough, also has more losses than any other coach in NHL history. But he won his last game, and that is the 2024 Stanley Cup on Monday night. So kudos for him. He's just somebody that I think you really want to root for. Phenomenal sense of humor, and hopefully we get him on the show at some point.
And I think maybe the first phone call that Paul Maurice should have made was right away to Peter Karmanos, who was the owner of the Windsor Spitfires, who's a Detroit native. He had the CompuWare minor hockey organization, has put a lot of his own money into Detroit minor hockey, ended up making Paul Maurice the assistant coach, as you said, under Tom Webster there in Windsor. And then it was again Peter Karmanos and Jim Rutherford that made the decision to hire Paul Maurice in his late 20s as the coach of the Hartford Whalers, because Pete Karmanos owned the Hartford Whalers at the time. And it was Pete Karmanos and Jim Rutherford that moved Paul Maurice and the rest of the Hartford Whalers to North Carolina to become the Carolina Hurricanes, first playing in Greensboro. And then Paul's career has gone on from there. So a big shout out to Pete Karmanos and the CompuWare Group and Jim Rutherford and the old Windsor Spitfires with his teammates of Adam Graves, and just a great guy, and great to see him finally get that Stanley Cup.
And it was really something just to watch him Monday night actually speak to the cup before raising it over his head. And I think he told the cup he's been chasing it for a long time, and thrilled for him that he finally got it. So that'll wrap up our show for this week. We want to put a big thanks out to our sponsors, My Gray and the Game 7 Group. Thank you to our listeners. Please send questions or comments to nhlwraparound@gmail.com. Don't forget our website up and running with all of our episodes, both on audio and video platforms, nhlwraparound.com. Next week, the offseason will be in full swing. NHL draft coming up Friday and Saturday of this week, and free agency kicking off on July 1st, so nothing short of topics to talk about when Neil and I see you next week. Take care.
Thanks for joining us on the NHL Wraparound podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on all the NHL action.